Hello listeners, and welcome to the Talk HR UK podcast, brought to you by the HR Recruitment team from Alexander Lloyd. I'm Simon Geere, and I've recorded a brief intro to this week's podcast whilst out on a lovely walk in the middle of rural Sussex, enjoying the sights and sounds of nature. The bluebells are out, my dog Vesper is trying to chase rabbits. For any vegan listeners, don't worry, she never catches them. It's just stressful exercise. And anyway, in this season 2, episode 2, all episodes are available on the Alexander Lloyd YouTube channel. Anyway, I talked to Martin Mason, who is the ex-global head of talent at The Body Shop and now founder and CEO of Unleashed, a talent and inclusion consultancy. Now, I've been talking to Martin a lot recently, but I haven't actually seen him for some time due to COVID regulations and lockdown. The last time I did see Martin, he was still working at The Body Shop, and I was attending a meeting on site at their London Bridge office, quite new to them at the time, I think, they just moved in. And the main thing I recall was that the lobby was literally full of beautiful male and female models that were there to attend a photo shoot, I assume, probably for Body Shop products. And it was one of the more enjoyable of the meetings I've had on site at a client, and I will always remember it for those reasons. Anyway, this podcast was recorded over Zoom virtually, and in it we discuss rethinking talent management. So we touch on the more traditional 9-box grid and look at how that can be made a more inclusive process, how onboarding can be linked to talent, and much more really. So I hope you enjoy and find something useful in here, and I will catch up with you at the end of the podcast. Speak soon. Hello everyone, welcome to Talk HR UK. I'm Simon Geere, and when I'm not helping HR directors, managing directors and CEOs recruit the best HR talent in the southeast of the UK, I get to enjoy myself talking to HR leaders on this podcast. So today I'd like to welcome Martin Mason. Hi Martin.
Hi Simon.
Great to have you on board. Thanks for giving up your time. Now, Martin is the founder of Unleashed, which is a talent and inclusion consultancy. I met Martin a few years back now when he had a senior talent role at The Body Shop. Previously, Martin's worked for Wolseley and Halfords, so some really well-known brands in senior talent and learning opportunities. So, with no further ado, I suppose I should hand over to you, Martin, and give you a chance to tell us a bit about your background and your current venture as the CEO of Unleashed.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So as you quite eloquently put, my background has been predominantly in the last 17 years in retail and HR. So working in very different roles, from kind of retail, operational facing roles through to talent roles, both in the UK and globally, which has been an amazing experience to get to work with some incredibly talented colleagues across the globe. And I've learned a great deal from them over the years in terms of the best practice around talent, and more latterly with the role of The Body Shop. It was a fantastic role and position to work with some really great people and learn some of the kind of cultural nuances around talent in different countries. And it gave me a real opportunity to stop, pause and reflect around kind of the way that we do recruitment, the way we manage talent and develop our colleagues internally. And I guess having worked for kind of a progressive organisation like The Body Shop, it was a great insight in terms of how you can be a far more diverse and inclusive business and the benefits that come with that, which kind of led me to form Unleashed. So we set Unleashed up just over a year ago now. We have been trading it's coming up for about 15 months, which is quite scary.
Wow.
And the premise of it was really to kind of support organisations, charities and individuals in becoming more inclusive, more diverse, and to help them improve performance by changing and improving their talent management, talent attraction and talent development practices.
Excellent, thank you. That's a really good point. Actually, I should explain for everyone. So today we're here to talk about kind of rethinking talent management as a concept, really, isn't it? And which is your area of expertise. So I guess, when I hear the words talent management, and when many people do, the first thing they think of is the classic 9-box grid.
Yeah,
it's the first thing that leaps to mind. I guess the question to you, what's wrong with it? With this method that we've all been using for so long?
Yeah, so I used to be, it sounds like a recovering alcoholic. I used to be a nine box grid user. So back in my kind of early HR days, I would have kind of gravitated towards the talent management grid because it was what we were taught as we were going through our HR qualifications, and kind of it was the best practice at the time. I know it's still prevalently used. I think as I had the luxury of working with some of the brands that I did, and some forward-thinking leaders, it gave us the opportunity to step back and think about what were we trying to achieve with talent management, which I think seldom few of us actually get the opportunity to do because we're just kind of caught in the rat race of delivering talent management strategy and activities every day. And one of the observations I made when we did that exercise was to notice that we spend so much time in talent management reviews focusing on putting people in boxes and thinking about their potential and performance in a very subjective way, rather than thinking about what are the talent needs for the business and where do our people best fit within that. I guess as well with large enterprise or global businesses, or even large UK businesses as well, the volume of candidates and people that you have in your business is so vast that trying to profile all of those people into a nine box grid is, a full-time job in itself. And so very rarely do you ever spend the time thinking about the development, where you've got skills gaps and how you bridge those skills gaps in your organization. And even for the best talent professionals that I've met, where they are very good with their processes and get people kind of boxed into these respective boxes, we then have to spend further time trying to work out, well, okay, well, if somebody's a box 9 and they're high potential, high performing, and we've established that, then what, does that mean that they can do any role? Are we saying that they're the best successor for the person that they're reporting into? What's their broader skill base and how do you leverage that talent? So I found as well, it almost created a series of mini-me's in organizations as well. So with the best intent, with bias, leaders tend to select in their own image. And when we started to play back some of the findings of nine box grids in talent reviews, it wasn't helping with the diversity and inclusion agenda because it was just creating more of what we'd already got.
It's a really good point. As you say, it's the process itself isn't horrendous by any stretch of the imagination, but it's how you apply it and who's applying it, isn't it? And subjectivity will creep in at any point in that process. So, well, it's a great point. So the next question: how do organisations reduce the subjectivity in a talent management process? Bearing that in mind.
So I guess my counsel whenever we're working with clients on this is always to start with the end in mind. So almost forget what you've got. Forget the worrying about how you select in the first instance and think about what it is you need. So that's usually far easier to start with. And, many of our clients will say things like, well, we know we need a more diverse leadership population in our senior leadership team because we're not representative of society, or we've not got the level of innovation that we're looking for. We'll then get comments like we've got poor succession planning. We need people that can fill the roles of chief finance officer, chief ops officer, for example, or store managers or retail managers, whatever it might be. When you work back from that, we would then encourage people to think about what are the skills that are or abilities that are required for those roles. And once you've got that information, it makes it far easier to assess what talent looks like in your business and how you tailor that to the selection criteria. And the only way that I've successfully found to do that on scale is using technology to try and systemize some of this process and remove bias through doing that. Okay. So having kind of like a talent database or AI technology that will help you field, the skills that you've got in your workforce and match those to suitable roles.
That's really interesting. So tell us a bit more about that, because that's an area I'm keen to understand a little bit more of in terms of the technology available. How does that work?
Yeah, so we've actually got a platform that we co-developed with some friends of ours in Canada who've got a tech startup called Paddle HR. So we use a variation of their software here in the UK called Talent Finder, which is where every individual employee in the organisation puts their skills and their previous experience in, a bit like a LinkedIn style profile. That sits in a talent database or repository that the HR or talent teams internally can access, and it allows you to mine data on employees at great speed. So we did it at the Body Shop last year, where we were able to, especially when the global pandemic kicked in, we were able to identify talented colleagues across the globe that were doing roles. So, for example, we've got store managers who happen to have backgrounds in communications or
Right.
PR or language skills that we didn't know about, and we were able to quickly redeploy them into new roles using this data technology rather than kind of our usual preconception of, oh, we need a data analyst, therefore it means that we'll have to go out and find somebody with those particular skills because we couldn't possibly have that internally. But once you've got that data, it makes it really easy to determine where you've got skills gaps, at an organisational level, but also where you can redeploy existing talent and save, not only save a ton of money in doing that, but also give opportunities to colleagues that otherwise wouldn't have them.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you're giving, as you say, giving people that opportunity to diversify their career and grow and develop internally with a brand that they're already engaged with, I suppose. So
exactly that, and it helps you be far more focused in your recruitment approach as well. So you can speak to your recruitment provider and say, look, we know we've got a massive gap in skills in this area, so actually we really need your help to find people that have got these skills, rather than kind of the more traditional approach of we'll just start role by role. It helps with that strategic workforce planning a lot more effectively.
well, definitely. So that's one way of, as you say, reducing the subjectivity. How do we, to further develop this, how do we make the process more inclusive across an organisation? Because that's something you're very passionate about.
It really is. So what I found is when you take this data-based approach as opposed to the more traditional methods, it does in fact improve diversity because you're presented with data, objective data on the skills and capabilities that people have, rather than people that perhaps would have otherwise been overlooked because for whatever reason there's a bias, or the line manager, they're not in the periphery of the hiring manager that's recruiting. The other part with that is with a lot of technology platforms now, including our own, you can turn off the names or location of the individual. So you're purely mining from capability and skills. And when you start there and then look at the names afterwards, it's interesting how much our own bias creeps into that. And I've been caught out on that myself when I've looked at that.
Well, it's there, isn't it? This is it. It's unconscious so often, and so that's one way. Is, as you say, to make it completely inclusive and very, very clear data, I suppose. So, well, interesting. So, in terms of you spoke about mini-me's earlier. When we talk about sort of natural succession planning for people, a lot of high potential people in an organisation, the obvious next step is their boss's job. That's it's happened to all of us. I'm sure it's happened to you. It's a process we all go through. How can we sort of change that thinking at an organisational level?
I think it comes back to some of what I've kind of touched on around. I think if you're really clear about this, so often when we're thinking about roles, we tend to think about behaviours, about culture fit, around a lot of subjective measures. When you strip that back and think purely about the skills that are required for a role and what are the traits of high performance of somebody in that role, almost starting with a blank piece of paper rather than a traditional job description for the current incumbent, it's amazing how different the recruiting brief is on the back of that. And I think that's where it starts to help you address some of the bias in thinking around who is the right fit for the role, particularly if you are able to leverage technology to assess a wider pool by putting these skills in. It shows you a match for people that you might not have thought of. But also as an individual, it opens up possibilities for other roles that I might be great for based on my skill set that I wouldn't have considered. So perhaps, there's lots of synergies between HR, technology, marketing and operations that people don't naturally think of. Certainly in my experience of speaking to people internally about their natural next step, as you're right, they think about the next step up in their current hierarchy. Whereas there's lots of sideways moves that people can make within an organisation to get that breadth of skill that they might be lacking or experience.
It's interesting, isn't it? And I think in a larger and particularly very established business, it's challenging. And then I'm sure you have. I worked for a startup years ago, and one thing they were fantastic at was you had people moving from contact center jobs into data analysis, into finance, into all these opportunities, because the rule book seems to go out the window with a startup creative business. And for the better, I think, generally. I know it doesn't always work out well, but if people could sort of try and maintain that creative ethos in more formal established environments, I think, I say it would give people far more routes to far more interesting careers and career development.
Definitely. And we've certainly found that Unleashed. So our team, we operate on a teal model, which for those of you that are less familiar, if you Google teal, there's some great little YouTube videos that kind of summarize the process beautifully. But effectively, it's about removing hierarchical structures and assuming that everyone works on a flat structure, and you organize your team and your projects based on skill as opposed to title. So everybody at Unleashed is a consultant. And we all have very different skills and abilities and experience, and we leverage that depending on the project or the client or the piece of work that we're working on, versus knowing that a certain person does a certain role, therefore they would naturally be the fit in front of the client. And it was a huge adjustment in the last year, moving from that hierarchical model to a more kind of fluid and dynamic way of working. But I've got to say the benefits have been amazing to see it, because when you start to apply it from a skills perspective versus a hierarchy, people end up working in a far more effective and collaborative way, and the results are much quicker because you're getting the right people on the job versus the kind of people that are expected to be on the job.
Yeah, it's agile, effectively, isn't it? It's, as you say, it's getting that right skill set in the right place, regardless of who they are, how long they've been there. And in some ways, it's almost painful because it's obvious common sense, but the way that organizations work don't allow for common sense a lot of the time.
No, really don't.
So when a business looks externally, when we look at recruiting talent into the business, how can we link the onboarding process to the talent management process? Because that always is an interesting area.
Yeah, and this is something we've been doing quite a lot of work on with clients in recent months, where they're really starting to look at their business and think about how they give better candidate experience. And we know that that's becoming far more important, particularly in sectors like pharmaceutical, technology, finance, which are in massive growth on the back of the pandemic. The competition for talent is rife, and we know that there are skills deficits in certain areas. So being able to give that great onboarding experience is key. But I've found in a lot of businesses that it tends to be quite disjointed, because you've got, particularly in large and enterprise businesses, you've got a recruitment team solely focused on getting people through the door. You've then got a learning and development team that are focused on kind of general L&D induction. But there seems to be this gap where people fall down in the middle between recruitment and L&D. And I think unless you've got dedicated people dedicated to that part of the process on a regular basis in terms of thinking about how you're onboarding colleagues into your business, technology again plays a really key part. So having a great technology experience, whether that's an app or a good learning management system, some form of onboarding space where from point of application through to starting my job on day one, I can get all the information that I need, and thinking about kind of that more personalized experience. I think tech is the only way you can really deliver that at scale. If you're in a smaller startup business, I think it's that personalized touch of just kind of almost mapping out a quick straw man of what's your process, where are the touch points that you're interacting with your candidate, and how can you make sure that that's personalized. So Unleashed, for example, when we were onboarding our team members last year, and actually as we're going through the process of onboarding somebody at the moment, we took the time to get to know them in the interview process, found out things that they liked. So we scribbled notes down furiously, managed to get a few things that they would like, sent a nice hamper to them with their contract, did a touch-in phone call to see how they were doing and to let everyone in the team message them to say how excited they were that they were joining. And then we made sure their tech was there in advance. It's all the hygiene factors, I guess, that really help to make sure that candidates think and feel that they're having a great experience with your brand.
Oh, definitely. And candidate experience is everything we're hearing about. Is it employee experience and candidate experience are the two sort of this month's buzz in HR for me, as I'm talking to organizations and they're thinking about how HR continues to improve, what it can offer its, the staff at any business really. So, but yeah, as you say, very, very key to link the onboarding piece to the future career development within an organization. So, I mean, we talked about tech a lot. I mean, the kind of tools that are available that will help employees match their current staff skill sets to other roles in an organization. And you've mentioned your own tool. Are there any other sort of ways that businesses can do that?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of businesses will already be operating with one of the bigger HR tech names in our experience. So they're either using something like a Workday or a SuccessFactors or an Oracle. Many of them have functionality that are underutilized that you can do work with this on. We do tend to find that whilst they have kind of some of the skills capture, they do tend to lack a little bit around the AI functionality or the anonymized process, which was one of the reasons we had to develop our own, because after a lot of extensive research, we couldn't find platforms that do this. That's not to say they exist, but we couldn't find them when we were looking. So I think, yeah, the start with what you've got. If you notice that you've got significant gaps, then it's perhaps time to look at something different and how you can implement new tech to support what you've already got.
Okay. And how, I mean, obviously once people are onboarded, I mean, particularly in this era, actually, where that face-to-face contact has not been there, you know, for a year now. It's frightening, isn't it? How can, I can't believe it's gone so quickly. How can organizations encourage the learner-led initiatives to ensure that future skills gaps are addressed in a proactive way, I suppose?
It's a really good question. So part of the reason that we developed the offer we did was to support that exact problem. So we've kind of got 3 tools that we use to help onboard our own colleagues and also our clients' colleagues. So we start with that personalized element of really understanding people's skills, abilities, and their development kind of gaps and their talents and strengths. So we use psychometric tools to do that. So we've got ours called You Unleashed, which looks at that, all those different areas and thinks about how you can provide that best onboarding experience. Then that moves into kind of a session not too dissimilar to the one we're doing today, where you can do that via Teams or Zoom and have those kind of onboarding or coaching conversations. And we use our platform Coach Finder for that. And then kind of the talent management aspect of it in terms of organizing talent and providing those solutions to people through Talent Finder, our talent tech.
Excellent. So you're set up, ready to go, basically. And how is it going? Obviously, I mean, you've bravely started an organisation, obviously in what's quite a challenging time. How, you know, I know you won't necessarily name any, but the kind of clients that you're working with, and the kind of business, how is it going so far?
I must admit, it was definitely a brave decision on reflection to do that in the middle of a pandemic, but we've been very fortunate in that we've managed to establish some really nice clients. And because we get to work with a blend of corporate and charity clients, we're able to kind of leverage the work we do with our corporate clients to help support charities that haven't got the resources or the support infrastructure that corporates have. So it's kind of almost been nice to have that, I guess, for want of an expression, almost that Robin Hood mentality of being able to support and really help assist our corporate clients, but equally be able to leverage that for those that can't afford to do the things that corporates can. But equally, we found by networking and bringing our clients together through doing that, there's been some great learning. So one of our charity clients specializes in mental health. So we've been able to offer them our products and services because it's been subsidized by corporate clients, but equally they've been able to provide education, resources and training for corporate clients because that's their area of specialism. So it's been quite nice to be part of this kind of symbiotic relationship and almost be the networking force behind it. So yeah, it's been a privilege to do it. So I'm very grateful to our clients and to our team because they are incredibly hardworking and very passionate about what they do.
That's excellent. It's good, as you say, it's good to hear about that symbiotic relationship and that and you're enjoying it so much. And you know that these positive stories are important for all of us because it is a challenging time for listeners and watchers who may be, you know, consuming this at any point. It's March 21, so we're conscious it's a year of lockdown, and a point that Martin made earlier is everyone seems sort of balanced on the precipice of this perceived war for talent. I think as we move forward, you know, as we get to Q3 and Q4 of this year, perhaps the market confidence will increase, and we are anticipating a lot of people perhaps voting with their feet and moving on from organizations, being snapped up by competitors. And yeah, it's going to be all about internal talent succession, isn't it, and attraction. And I think you're going to have your work cut out for you from a volume perspective, which is what you want, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons we went into this space. We love working in that environment and getting to work with clients. But I think, to your point there, Simon, I think one thing I would encourage, based on the feedback and bits we're picking up from colleagues in business now, there's kind of two camps of people that we're seeing quite distinctly at the moment. We've got people that are incredibly pleased and happy with their employees because they've had a great experience over the last year, and whilst the pandemic's been challenging, they felt very supported and encouraged, and you can tell from that their loyalty is there and they're not likely to move on. And we've got another camp of people that are feeling quite disenfranchised, who are very tired, very fatigued, who have perhaps been overworked and are feeling a little bit neglected. And I think they're the people that we need to keep an eye on, particularly in the talent space over the coming months, because as the world opens back up, as you say, there's going to be more and more opportunity for people to move. And I think just those simple check-ins by, picking up the phone and asking how people are doing, it's amazing the amount of calls we're having from people in our network to say that, it's been several months since they've spoken to their line manager and they've just not had that kind of touch in. So we're all busy, but finding the time to do that is probably one of the best things you can do for your talent right now.
Yeah, it's frightening to hear that kind of comment, isn't it? But you're right, as you say, every business has a responsibility to look after their staff, even at the same time as you get to grips with what is a new experience for all of us. But there are definitely some huge success stories out there for really engaged employees that have done some great things, and sadly the opposite. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Hey, look, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really good to check in, hear about the organisation, and hear about your approach to inclusive talent management. So, and great to catch up with you again after so long, Martin. It's really lovely to talk to you.
Thanks, Simon. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm assuming, so for anyone that's watching or listening to this, they can reach out to you. Is LinkedIn the best way to contact you in the first place?
Yeah, so if people have got queries, we're available on our email, which is hello@unleashed.org.uk. Our website is unleashed.org.uk. And we've also got our network channel called The Arena, where we've been able to bring together our corporate and charity and individual partners. So that's thearenanetwork.com if anyone wants to collaborate with other HR and D&I professionals.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Hey, enjoy the rest of the day. And it's always great to catch up. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Simon. Take care.
Cheers. And you.
Bye.
Bye. Well, listeners, thanks for listening to Talk HR UK Season 2, Episode 2 with Martin Mason, the CEO of Unleashed. Obviously, if you liked this, there's much more. So check out the Alexander Lloyd YouTube channel for all of Season 1. I think there's about 20 episodes on there at least, plus the beginnings of Season 2, and lots of other helpful content, actually. There's some workshops on there. Anything you need, it's probably there. So do have a look. All the audio is also available on all the typical platforms, I think Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. Look up Talk HR UK and you'll find us. Lastly, if I may ask you a favour, please like and share this. I post regular sort of clips from the podcast on LinkedIn, and the more listeners we get, the more fun we have. And obviously do subscribe to the podcast if you're enjoying it, and you'll get notifications of each episode as it comes down. We generally release them on a Tuesday weekly. So this is me, Simon Geere from Alexander Lloyd, saying thanks for listening, goodbye, and hopefully talk to you next week.